Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a sweeping, thousand-year journey through one of the most fascinating chapters in all of world history. We're looking at the Islamic evolution in India. And trust me, this is a story that completely reshaped the cultural, political, and spiritual landscape of the entire subcontinent.
So, to kick things off, let me ask you this. Did Islam enter India through the sword or the spice trade? It's actually a brilliant question because it challenges a really common misconception. You know, when we think about vast historical empires, we almost always default to visions of pure military conquest. But the reality of this cultural evolution, it's way more complex, deeply nuanced, and honestly, a whole lot more interesting than just battles and borders.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with early traders and settlements, then the first political footholds. From there, we hit the Delhi Sultanate era, followed by Sufis and cultural blending, and finally, the Mughal Golden Age.
Before we really zoom in, let's quickly orient ourselves to the massive scope we're about to cover. We're starting way back in the 7th century with Arab traders. Then we see the first political foothold in Sindh around 711 CE. From there, we jump to the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate in 1206, and finally, the dawn of the Mughal Empire in 1526. Keeping this chronological flow in mind is really going to help you see how these distinct eras beautifully build upon one another.
All right, let's jump into Section 1. Early traders and settlements and the spice route connection.
So, way before any large Muslim empires ruled the subcontinent, Arab merchants were already peacefully trading silk, spices, perfumes, and precious stones right on the Malabar coast in present-day Kerala. When Islam rose in the 7th century, a lot of these traders adopted the new faith, and they just continued their long-standing trade journeys to India. The Cheraman Juma Mosque in Kerala is actually believed to be one of India's very oldest. It is literal, tangible proof that integration happened centuries before any political conquests were even a thought. These early Muslim traders just settled down peacefully in coastal towns, they married locally, and built some of the earliest Muslim communities in South Asia. It was a true grassroots connection.
Moving on to Section 2, the first political footholds, marking the 8th to 12th century shifts. Now, during these centuries, interactions started shifting from purely peaceful trade into statecraft and conflict. In 711 CE, a young general named Muhammad bin Qasim defeated Raja Dahir in Sindh. Now, this was partly a strategic move to protect those vital Indian Ocean trade routes from attacks, and it established the first lasting Muslim political foothold. But fast forward 300 years to Muhammad of Ghazni in the 11th century. He launched heavy raids into northwestern India, targeting really wealthy cities and temples, like Somnath. His campaigns were driven much more by a desire for wealth, political expansion, and religious motives. Comparing these two early military entries shows us exactly how political goals drastically evolved over just a few centuries. Then, the whole game changes entirely in the late 12th century. Unlike the raiders before him, Muhammad Ghori aimed to establish long-term political control. In 1192, he won the Second Battle of Tarain, defeating the Rajput king Prithviraj Chauhan. And the monumental result of this? It opened up northern India to Muslim rule on a massive scale. When Ghori died, his generals didn't just pack up their tents and leave, they actually laid the solid foundations for a permanent empire.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Delhi Sultanate era and building an empire.
Established in 1206, the Delhi Sultanate became the very first major Islamic empire centered directly within India, and it fundamentally altered the region's historical trajectory. Over 3 centuries, the Sultanate saw a succession of powerful dynasties: the Mamluks, the Khaljis, Tughlaqs, Sayyids, and Lodis. Under their rule, Delhi literally became one of the most important cities in the entire Islamic world. We are talking about a massive cultural boom here, where Persian culture, incredible Islamic architecture, new administrative systems, and literature absolutely flourished, all while blending simultaneously with local Hindu traditions.
And honestly, there is no better tangible proof of that cultural synthesis than the Urdu language. It developed directly from the mixing of Persian, Arabic, Turkish, and local Indian languages, right during the Sultanate era. The fascinating part is that it wasn't mandated from the top down by some ruler. It grew organically from the everyday, daily interactions between Hindu and Muslim societies, shaping a completely new and enduring cultural tradition.
Let's look at Section 4, Sufis and cultural blending, our spiritual ambassadors.
So, while dynasties were busy building these grand empires in Delhi, a massive grassroots expansion was happening on a deeply spiritual level across the rest of the country. The Sufi saints operated on a totally different core philosophy: spirituality, charity, equality, and personal devotion rather than political power.
Because they completely rejected the pursuit of political power and instead lived these simple lifestyles focused on love and equality, their message naturally attracted people from all different backgrounds and classes across India.
The crucial point here is exactly how these figures operated. Let's look at two massive spiritual figures of the era. Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti of Ajmer emphasized love, tolerance, and service to humanity. His shrine literally still attracts millions of visitors from all religions to this day. Meanwhile, Nizamuddin Aulia over in Delhi was known for his deep compassion, his spirituality, and his total rejection of political power. These Sufi networks rooted Islam incredibly deeply into the fabric of Indian society, and they did it through charity and community, absolutely not by the sword.
And that leads us to Section 5, the Mughal Golden Age, the apex of synthesis.
In 1526, a leader named Babur won the First Battle of Panipat, which established the highly influential Mughal Empire, an empire that would eventually expand across most of the subcontinent. Now, I want to anchor this somewhat abstract idea of cultural synthesis to something you're going to instantly recognize, the Taj Mahal. Built by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan in memory of his wife Mumtaz Mahal, it isn't just a stunning building, it's the perfect physical embodiment of Persian and Indian architectural traditions completely blending together. It really is the visual peak of this thousand-year cultural evolution.
But keep in mind, the Mughal era wasn't just one monolithic thing. On one hand, you have Akbar the Great, who was famous for his incredible policies of tolerance. He actively included Hindus in his government, reduced religious discrimination, and eagerly encouraged interfaith debates among scholars. On the flip side, later on, Aurangzeb took a much more conservative Islamic approach. While he did expand the empire to its absolute largest territorial size, his constant, drawn-out wars also weakened the empire financially and politically. It perfectly shows how drastically different policies impacted the exact same empire's trajectory.
As we hit the 18th century, Mughal power inevitably declines. This was driven by a heavy mix of internal struggles, regional rebellions, and of course, the growing influence of the British East India Company. But here's the key takeaway. Despite the political fall, the cultural roots were totally permanent. The emperors fell, the political maps were redrawn, but that thousand-year cultural, linguistic, and spiritual integration, it remained fully intact.
And all of this brings us to a massive modern-day reality. Today, India's Muslim population is one of the world's largest. It is the living, breathing legacy of this incredible thousand-year evolution we've just walked through together. The history of Islam in India simply cannot be reduced to a single story of conquest or conversion alone.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. When we look back at history, do we only see the empires that conquered, or do we see the complex mosaic of cultures that connected? This was a profoundly human story. A story of merchants trading spices, saints preaching love, scholars debating faith, rulers expanding borders, and ordinary people building a shared life together over a millennium. I really hope this explainer has given you a much richer, clearer understanding of that mosaic. Keep learning, keep asking great questions, and I'll catch you.
يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير